Welcome to Today I Messed Up. In today's stories, I messed up by tricking my hospitalised brother into thinking the world ended, by giving an alternate meaning to a previously suicidal girl's tattoo, by telling a girl on a first date that I work with deaf children and know sign language, and by not washing my hair properly for over 10 years. What is up, guys? I'm really excited about today's stories because they are so fun. Wow, I think they're really funny. I hope you do too. If you do enjoy Reddit stories, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button, and maybe even that notification bell. And with that being said, let's get started. Our first story is from Familiar Seaweed 8. Today I messed up by tricking my hospitalised brother into thinking the world ended. Obligatory wasn't today. This happened a couple of months back. My brother and I have always had a long-standing agreement that in the event of hospitalisation, the other one would try to convince the hospitalised by any means necessary that the world ended, coming from an idea of waking up from a coma to find out you slept through the apocalypse, etc. This agreement was about 14 to 15 years ago, but we reference it quite often, so I was convinced he still remembered. A couple of months back, my brother was admitted to the hospital initially for intense stomach pains, but eventually found out what my dad describes as an absolute fuck ton of kidney stones. Eventually got out, but the stents he had to pull through his urethra snapped and he was admitted again. I got home this time because my mum made it sound far worse than it actually was. I decided to take this opportunity to enact our agreement. Near the hospital is a really rundown quarry looking place. There's a bunch of old rusted metal shit everywhere and a really ominous little cement shack, which, to this day, no one in town really knows what it's for. So I went out and filmed a video basically along the lines of, brother's name, if you're watching this, I'm already dead. Everyone in the world pretty much is. It's been about 8 months since you went to hospital name. You need to head for the safe haven in Helsinki. We live in Western Canada. Mum might be there. Godspeed. I managed to sync it up with the TV and woke him up just as it was starting. This where it all goes to complete shit. My brother began to lose it immediately. He started freaking out, screaming, basically got up, put on his clothes and noped out into the hallway. I grabbed him to calm him down, which he eventually did. Nurses came in and I was ejected from the hospital for causing a disturbance. Rightfully so. He got out a couple of days later and we've been laughing about it ever since. My mum won't talk to me and just tell me to fuck off back home. My dad thinks it's funny but won't laugh about it in front of my mum. I'm no longer welcome at the hospital unless it's an emergency. I've also been kicked out of a family vacation. Worth the wait though. Number 1, I don't want to upload the video. I made it sound tamer than it was. I look, sound and say completely batshit stuff on the video and definitely don't want to be associated with it. Number 2, the TVs in the hospital had HDMI ports. I just plugged it into my Chromebook. Number 3, I can see why people say I made this up for karma, but I didn't create a throwaway to do that. If I cared that much, I would have posted it on my main account. Number 4, my mum has a genetic tendency to overreact. She's been happy with me moving, Western Canada to the Maritimes, bitching about abandoning the family, etc. So this is probably going to happen regardless. She paid for it though, and can't get a refund from my ticket, so it's not my problem. I love it that you had an agreement, you've always had an agreement to do this, and then when it finally happened, your brother absolutely loses it. Oh, the effort you went through though to film it is absolutely spot on. I love that. I'd love to do that to one of my brothers. I've got 3 brothers, by the way. Thank you so much, Familiar Seaweed, for that story. Absolutely loved it. I'm going to absolutely butcher this next name, but next story is from Better Fish. Today I messed up by giving an alternate meaning to a previously suicidal girl's tattoo. Disclaimer, this actually happened several years ago, but I still do feel really bad. I was on a date out with a girl, and things were going well despite me being a nervous wreck. We got to talking, and she admitted she had depression, at one point was even suicidal, but was proud of herself for getting past that chapter of her life. She then shows me a semicolon tattoo on her wrist and explains the significance. That means the sentence could have ended there, but the author decided to add more. It's all very sweet and heartfelt. Now, I in no way have any issues with mental illness and still feel super guilty about this to this day, but me with a perpetual foot in the mouth syndrome say, you know in programming it means end. She doesn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Suffice to say, I never got a second date. Edit, the popularity of this post is mostly just everyone telling me I'm wrong. Lol, I guess I could have had a better definition, but I also could have shut my big fat mouth. And I did in fact apologise. A bunch. She awkwardly laughed it off. Our next story is from Jesus. Today I messed up by telling a girl on a first date that I work with deaf children and know sign language. So first of all, I'll start off with a little context. I don't usually do formal first dates, especially when it's somebody I barely even know. However, I've just come back to university for my final year of studying, and I met up with my old flatmate from last year. She had already moved into her new flat and met all of her new flatmates, one of which happened to be a very attractive girl, who we will call Stacey. Now my old flatmate was always trying to set me up on dates, last year at university, but I always had an excuse. Now with it being the new year, I thought I'd have a fresh start and really knuckle down and stop going out all the time. I said exactly the same after my first year, and focus on my uni work and look for a serious relationship instead of having flings. So I get shown pictures of Stacey, and my old flatmate is showing me how nice she seems and how great she is, and honestly, I just thought why not? I may as well. What harm could going on a date possibly bring about? So she gives me Stacey's number and we start to text and chat for a couple of weeks, and we seem to be getting along really well. So much so that I suggest we should go for some food one evening to meet in person and get to know one another a little better. Now bearing in mind, I never do this. I usually just speak to girls on nights out when I'm filled to the brim with liquid confidence, and I'm usually so drunk that my confidence is through the roof. However, I feel myself really starting to like this girl. I've never really been one for texting, but our conversation seemed to flow naturally. So I meet Stacey at a very busy restaurant last week. I'm full of nerves, but I'm ready for the date. We sat down and we begin chatting away, and things seem to be going really well. I'm still nervous, but after a few pints the nerves start to settle and I get a bit carried away telling my stories and somewhat crude jokes. At the best of times, I'm a very loud person. However, after a few beers, I turn into a human foghorn. Unbeknownst to me, I'm speaking at a high level, enough for the whole room to hear. I know this because all my friends love to remind me how loud I am when we're on a night out. Now here comes the fuck up. So being full of my favourite ale, and with the nerves starting to settle, I'm growing louder and louder by the minute. So much that Stacey, very politely I must say, lets me know that I need to turn the volume down just a tad. Especially when telling my alcohol fueled jokes. Now I'm not an angry person by any means, but I can't begin to count the amount of times I've been told to quieten down when drunk. For some reason, I decided this night was the night when I'd had enough. So instead of apologising like any normal person would, drunk me decided it'd be a good idea to try and turn it back on Stacey. I don't know what came over me, but the only excuse I could muster was, well, I do apologise, but you see, I volunteer working with deaf children, so I'm used to having to speak really loudly. I've actually just come from there before our date. Now if you knew me, you'd realise how ridiculous this sounds. Once I told my friends and my old flatmate about what I had said, they were falling to the floor with laughter. So far, it doesn't seem that bad, until Stacey says something along the lines of, "Wow, I'm really sorry, this is great, you must know sign language then." Drunk me, thinking I got one up on her, proceeded to nod and claim that in fact I do know sign language. I think I even threw a few fake hand signs, which probably looked more like gang signs to cover my tracks. However, what I didn't expect was for Stacey to have a younger deaf brother who would apparently love to meet me, as she'd never dated a guy before who can do sign language. Honestly, my heart sank. She was sat across the table from me signing something to me, and God knows what she was saying. I just smiled and nodded, and to this day I still don't know what she was saying, but my unenthusiastic smile and nod seemed to work. I quickly moved the conversation along and swiftly got off the subject. So now Stacey thinks I know sign language, and what's even better is that she can't wait for me to meet her younger brother, who would be so excited to be able to sign with a guy she's dating. I've tried YouTube videos, but all I've managed to pick up on is saying vows and ask someone's name. I don't have the balls to tell her, and I really don't know what to do. I'm seeing her again next week, and I know I need to tell her the truth. She seems the sort of person who would just laugh it off, but she seemed so happy when I told her she's even suggesting we FaceTime her brother when we're next together so I can have a conversation with him. I just feel like a dick now. I don't want to let her down or upset her younger brother, but I don't think asking him his name over and over is going to cut it. Oh my word. Why? Why do you do this? All I can suggest, dude, is you best get in some classes and quick. To be fair though, I think if you got to say the truth to her, but you make a point of saying, look, I've just joined some classes to learn sign language. I think she'd really appreciate that and just say, look, you was drunk at the time, I've joined some classes and I'm gonna learn and I will speak to your brother. I think that's the best way for it. If you really do like her, I think it's worth it. And our final story is from Silver Purse. Today I messed up by not washing my hair properly for over 10 years. I have not a clue when this F-up started, but I do know that I realised my hair at the age of around 25. I'm currently 34. I was recently reminded of this after seeing this particular image on another subreddit. Backstory: like most children, I was bathed by my parents until an age where I felt I was getting too old to have them help me. Around 9, 10, 11 or 12. For a guess, God knows. I remember that both parents had taught me the importance of cleaning everywhere efficiently. I used to hate it when my father washed my hair. He used to scrub it so hard it would shake my head and could feel each of his fingers digging into my scalp when he did it. After I was old enough to wash myself, as well as the usual instructions of what to make sure I'd wash, he always told me to give my head a good scrub. It's only after realising my F-up that I recalled my father's instructions from all those years ago. I can only presume that once I had the ability and trust to clean myself, I choose to ignore my father's advice about washing the shampoo in deep and hard with my fingers. For many years, I would use shampoo and just rub it onto my hair with my palms with my hands for an amount of time that I thought was sufficient before washing it off again. I'm half white and half black, and although my hair has always been fairly short, it has a tough afro texture. I could be stood in the shower for an hour with water pouring on my head and the hair would remain sticking up. I'm not sure whether this is a factor or not, but I could never style my hair in any way, so it wouldn't need combing when I got out of bed or a shower. It just stayed upright constantly, and still does. For as long as I remembered, every time I went to the barber's, I would notice a huge amount of what I thought was dry skin falling all over the black gown. I used to be so embarrassed about this and constantly tell the barbers that I had a dry scalp condition. I even purchased special shampoo to try and treat dry scalp, but nothing helped. A couple of times the barber would tell me that I need to clean my head properly. I just presumed that they didn't understand the dry scalp when they saw one. Before going to the barber's, I would have long showers washing my hair for ages, but nothing helped. 30 minutes later, I'd be in the barber's chair with white flakes falling all over the place. One time it was so bad about 5 people in the barber's made comments about the flakes scattered all about me during a cut. I was a little embarrassed, but just told them all about my dry scalp condition. At the end of this particular cut, I looked like I'd been out in snow for an hour. So the realisation came one day when I was around 24/25 and I was washing my ears. Other than a 5-second rinse around my fingers, I never really put much thought into cleaning the inside of my ears. I don't know why, but on this occasion I decided to put shampoo inside my ears. I washed around for a while and after a few seconds I started to hear/feel my fingers squeaking. Having washed away any oil that was there, I suddenly thought of a phrase, squeaky clean, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. Memories of my father hurting my head with his fingers came back to me. I had never heard or felt my head squeak in this way since I was a kid. I quickly emptied a load of shampoo on my hair and instead of using my palms I dug my fingers hard and started scrubbing. After a while on a certain spot I heard/felt a squeak. Oh my god, right there and then I realised I didn't have a dry scalp condition, I just hadn't properly cleaned my head for all these years. I washed the whole of my head until all of it squeaked. I've made sure to clean to the squeak each time since. On the next trip to the barber's there was not a single white flake anywhere and there hasn't been one since. I told the barber the doctor had given me some medication which fixed my problem so I didn't have to confess to being a dirty dumb idiot. I will make sure my son never has to go through this by telling him my story. Damn! Is that actually healthy though, to clean to a squeak? That sounds like it's overkill if anything. I'm kind of worried because I've never heard my head squeak before when I've rubbed it that hard. I mean, I've got a load of hair on my head, but Jesus. As always guys, I would love to hear your thoughts on today's stories or any mess ups you've had in the past. Let us know in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed today's stories as much as I had. I had a lot of fun reading today's stories. God knows what I'm doing at 6 AM reading these stories before I go to work. Absolutely crazy. But thank you so much for being here. I know I say this every time, but I can't express. It blows my mind that you're sat there right now watching this. It's like, what? There's someone watching me talk. What the hell's going on here? But thank you so much guys. I really do appreciate it. Much love to you. And I will see you in the next one.